Alright, this is my Shaddolche deck. It's a mix of Shaddolls and Madolches, but technically it's Madolche Shaddolls or Shaddoll Madolches. But Shaddolches might be a nickname for the deck. So obviously I use Shaddolls combined with Madolches. It's a pretty strong deck. It's pretty good. Also have Elemental Hero Pageman. He's a fire attribute to come, so that's useful for making egg wrestle, or plus he's a level 4. You could just go into rank 4 play, but mainly he's in there because he gets you polymerization. Whether you normal summon or special summon him, you get polymerization. A way you can special summon them is if you're moving from play for Hoot Cake's effect, for example, right? Do what you do with Hoot Cake, and then if you have Hoot Cake and let's say not a Hoot Cake, of course, overlay the two and go into a Leviar, you can use Leviar to bring back Pageman from out of play onto the field, and then since you special summon, get the effect to get polymerization. So, and of course, having polymerization is like having 6 Shaddoll fusions. You know what I mean? It's all about that fuse, right? You gotta be able to fuse consistently. Of course, Shaddoll fusion recycles itself. That's great, but you can't play 2 Shaddoll fusions in the same turn, so it makes it harder to do an OTK, right? But with polymerization, you can OTK for days, right? So I use Shaddoll Dragon, obviously, you know, for MST purposes. Get rid of that back row hate. I mean, it's back row hate to get rid of that back row. Has a flip effect. They can target one card on the field and bounce it back to the owner's hand. Typically, this is good against another monster, especially against Shaddolls, because you can set it, and then you can bounce any one of your opponent's, you know, Shaddoll fusions back into that Shaddoll deck, and they won't get Shaddoll fusion, because they gotta go to graveyard for them to get Shaddoll fusion back from the graveyard, right? Shaddoll Lizard. This helps you thin out the deck. You know what I mean? You're trying to get to your spells and your traps and your other monsters. Try to do some extra combos. So Shaddoll Lizard is good to help you thin out your deck. So it's kind of like Upstart Goblin in a way. You know what I mean? Thins out your deck. So typically, whenever you're sending something to a graveyard, whether it be buying a effect or something, or if it's Foolish Burial, you typically just want to send Lizard. Then use Lizard to send Dragon or Hedgehog. And of course, Hedgehog can help you thin out the deck some more by grabbing something else. So if your opponent has no back row, obviously you just send Lizard to graveyard, then send Hedgehog, and then grab another Lizard. That's the typical play I do with the Shaddolls. I save the Dragon for later. Then of course Lizard has the ability that if you set him, and then when he flips, you could destroy one monster on the field. So that's pretty useful, you know. So you can take advantage of that. Plus he's 1800, decent strength, attack strength, useful for attacking and whatnot. Of course, Hedgehog flip effect gets you Shaddoll fusion. You know, you gotta get to your Shaddoll fusion, right? So you got Hedgehog for Shaddoll fusion, and you got Pageman for polymerization. When Hedgehog sent to a graveyard, you can add any Shaddoll monster from your deck to your hand, except for himself. Pretty simple, right? He's a level 3, so you can use him with Hoot Cake and go into a rank 3 play. You can do Invoker, of course, Leviar, or Zenmain. And Zenmain is fire, so that comes in handy if you want to make Egrestle. Of course, we got Madolche and Jelly. Just her alone can thin out the deck a lot and get you some good field presence, because obviously you summon her, tribute her, bring out the Hoot Cake, use Hoot Cake's effect, banishing her to bring out Messenger Nano. Messenger Nano will get you Ticket, and there you go. Off of one card, you got 3 cards out your deck, and now you got some field presence, right? And also, you know, you got some earths, like you can use Hoot Cake, you know, with Shaddoll fusion or polymerization with one of your Shaddoll monsters, and create Shikanaga. You can create Shikanaga. which is the main one I like to make the most. But the fire one is pretty badass because it comes in handy when. Because the fire one is really good because your opponent tries to special summon something like an exceed or something, get rid of it. So can't hate that effect. But Shaddolche is pretty good because he's stronger in terms of attack and defense, and you could do some, and if they have enough, and if they summon a monster like Black Rose or something, they try to act back Black Rose effect, you can just negate and destroy it, shit like that. So that's useful. But also the fact that it's a 10-star, which is another thing I like about it. It's a 10-star, so that YUGIOH combined makes Gustav Max. So gotta love that. Burn, burn, burn. More damage you deal your opponent, the better you'll win, right? You'll get that YCS top in no time, right? Messenger is just, he's a warrior, so you can bring him up Invoker, of course, and he's a 1600, so that's not that bad. Level 4, so you can go into a rank 4 play, like Tiramisu, of course. One of your best toys to play with because it doesn't destroy, so it's good for, I guess, the Shaddoll matchup or whatnot. So you can guarantee the fusions don't go to the grave; they go back into extra deck. So that way the Shaddoll fusion stays in the grave. Because if they can't get the fusion, they can't fuse, right? Unless they doing what I'm doing and they got the polymerizations or the super poly, right? It's like fuck, they have options beyond just the Shaddoll fusion. Not much else. Of course, he gets you the ticket. You know what I mean? The ticket's really good because it helps you keeps you a hand advantage. Gotta maintain a hand advantage. Plus the fact that they go back in the deck on their own when they're destroyed by battle card effect. You gotta love that. Which is the reason why I was thinking like, oh yeah, Shaddolls and Madolches, because the Madolches will always go back in the deck, so you can always guarantee that you'll have monsters in the deck that you can use, especially if you're trying to use the Angeli combo over and over again. You know what I mean? Summon Angeli, summon Hoot Cake effect, banish Angeli to summon Michelin, get you ticket, you know what I mean? Which is something you'll do a lot in this deck. Of course, I already said Blazeman. He's just there to help you get your polymerization, and he's fire, so he helps you create a gristle. YUGIOH, so you can recycle Shaddolls, and Shaddolls don't go back into the deck by themselves. So YUGIOH helps you with that. He's good with Shekanaga, so you can make Gustav Max, burn your opponent, and then of course if Gustav Max goes to the graveyard, you just summon another YUGIOH, put him back in the deck, then polymerize or Shaddoll fusion, create another Shekanaga, make him again, continue the rinse and repeat, obviously. Shaddoll fusion, polymerization, so you can fuse, obviously. Madolche tickets, so you can keep hand advantage. Also can help you get more monsters in the field, because if you get, let's say you already have a Madolche on the field, you can use, obviously you can summon another Madolche, set up your combo up, get tickets, summon ticket, then overlay, make Tiramisu, use Tiramisu's effect to bounce, to send Madolches from your graveyard back into your deck. And also does cards, so if you have another ticket in the graveyard, you can send that back in the deck, so you can recycle your tickets, of course. Send it back into the deck, bounce up to 2 cards from your opponent's field back to his hand. Back into his deck. Right? Back to the deck. That's the idea of the effect, right? Shuffle their cards into the deck. Yeah, back into the deck, of course, which is even better. Back to the deck. And then, of course, Tiramisu, since she's a fairy, whatever Madolche you add to your hand, you can special summon instead. And of course, I tend to special summon Mr. Janana because he's 1600, so I can deal some more damage. Spell Shattering is good against, if you're going up against stuff like, Madolches that have Madolche ticket and the Chateau and other cards, like that. supply unit, supply squad. I mean, stuff like that. Spell Shadow Arrow is good against that. It's good against pendulums, of course, when they're in the pendulum zone, and so forth and so forth. So obviously, it's good to have, and it deals damage. So the more damage you deal, of course, the better. Royal Decree. This deck is pretty monster heavy, pretty reliant on the spells to get the most amount of spam off. And Royal Decree is just a good option because it's good against stuff like Warning, Bomb, stuff like that. Because the thing with Dragon is, like, when you play Shaddoll Fusion, you send the Dragon to the graveyard with another monster. Dragon doesn't pop the back row before the monster hits the field. The monster hits the field before Dragon does its effect. So if your opponent has a Trenchel or something, or just some card that when you like Warning or something, it's like stopping your monster from being properly hit in the field and all that good stuff, right? So it's like there's no point in sending Dragon graveyard if a monster is gonna die before Dragon gets his effect off. So now Dragon has no target. So having something like this, Royal Decree will guarantee that your opponent really can't use a lot of his traps. Because a lot of players play traps, so obviously you play Royal Decree to shut that down and then pop them with Dragon. So Foolish Burial, typical, is just send any of the Shaddolls to the graveyard to get their effects off. Typically, Lizard's the one you want to send to the graveyard. Leviar, the Sea Dragon. This helps you get any of your monsters moved from play onto the field. You want to see? MX6 Saber Invoker. You can obviously use this to bring out Madolche, Mr. Gelato onto the field. That way you can, get into your rank 4 plays. It's one of your main exceeds you want to make. Zen main, for defense. Helps you pop back. Also, it's like a Regeki break. Also, it's fire, so you can make Egresso with it. Exciton Knight, that's what you'll use to make Construct. Somebody might point out, like, how do you make her? It's like, I use Exciton. You know what I mean? Mainly after I use Exciton's effect, I use him to create her. So that's how that works. And of course, Exciton, rank 4 Black Rose, self-explanatory. I'll get rid of everything and anything I need to get rid of, right? Sky Blaster. It will just, you could detach a material to put a monster face down. You rarely use that effect, but it could be useful. But the effect I use is always detach the 2 materials to send one face-up card on field and put it back in my opponent's deck. Again, you can get rid of back row with that field spell or something. In case somebody puts something on the field, it could be an issue. Like, what would it be? Like Necro Valley. Necro Valley will stop your Shaddoll fusions from giving you Shaddoll fusion. Yeah. Necro Valley will stop your Shaddoll fusions from getting you back Shaddoll fusion, the spell card. Because they're the ones that's adding it back to your hand. It's not Shaddoll fusion adding itself back to the hand when Shaddoll goes to the graveyard. Because if that was the case, then Necro Valley wouldn't stop it. But Necro Valley can't stop it, so that's an issue. You know what I mean? So that's why Spell Shadow Arrow is useful to get rid of Necro Valley. Dragon to get rid of Necro Valley. You know what I mean? Sky Blaster, Exotons, and Main. You know, I got a good amount of ways of getting rid of what I need to get rid of, right? Level Chain. Again, something simple. One, this helps you control your deck. So then you draw, right? You exceed into him, detach, put a monster on top of your deck, so you can have what you need. You get Angeli on top of your deck when you need her. You can get Placement on top of your deck, so you can get the polymerization. You know, whatever you might need right there. And then, of course, you can send Shaddoll Fusion. You know, if you're trying to use some of your fusion monsters to get it back and whatnot. But typically, you'll send a monster. I send Lizard to the graveyard. I use Lizard effect and send just me a card. You know, like the deck. So great utility. Oh, fire. I went to Gristle, so that's always good. Gustav Max, of course, deal 2,000 points of damage by detaching material. It's a 3,000 beater. Attack your opponent for game, right? Construct, special summon, and one card from your fusion. You're just trying monsters, or monsters, and you don't get them on anyway. It's not a foolish person. It's just I like. And to start that, a special summon monster, destroy that monster. An OP catastrophe, right? And this card sent from the field to the graveyard. Add a Shaddoll spell or trap from your graveyard to your hand. Typically, you'll get Shaddoll Fusion, obviously. Gristle. When your opponent would special summon a monster or monsters, I love that extra S, right? Monsters. That means Pendulum Summon. If you have a Shaddoll card in your hand, you can negate the summon, and if you do destroy it, then send one Shaddoll card from your hand to the graveyard. You can only use this effect. So yeah, this is a warning, like essentially, like a king. More, you know, drop it down like 50, with 50 defense, man, it just makes it so like the 5. The Earth, Rash. Of course, all can be read. I don't need too many copies of that much. Gristle, that one. I meant Gristle and chicken. I make them more than the ones, so you one extra. One of every extra, so I play with how much I can. So two Madolche. I like Madolche's can't be destroyed effect, of course, and that's pretty cool. The ability to, you know, neither player can special summon more than once per turn while this card face up on the field. That's good against your opponent, so bad for yourself. I've been in scenarios where I can't truly spam because Madolche is on the field, and it's like, yeah, I don't like that. Madolche is a good, you know, first turn play or, you know, offensive play. You just make her, you know, since she can't be destroyed. You know, it'd be by card effects. You can summon her, attack with her. You know, just right off the bat, just to get things going. And the fact that by you know the way you make us using two Shaddolls, you're just trying to get the Shaddoll's effects off. I mean, that's really what you're trying to do. Not really trying to use her to control the field per se, because if she only applied to your opponent, then yeah, she'd be awesome all the time. But since she applies to you as well, that doesn't seem to me, that's not that awesome. Because this deck has the ability to fuse more than once, like her and that fusion hour. I just like when you're jam, right? But she's still good for what she's for. So, again, defense is really decent. To do stuff. And when it was special, and it's just a fact. Carding, you can negate, destroy, and apart from your head graveyard. And of course, these effects activating your effects, so that's a thing. And that effects can activate the effect. The same time that before these two were not. Like, what's his name? What is his name? Gardener. Because I can my opponent, or I can, so it doesn't get destroyed, and you know get the Shaddoll monster's effect, or similar to that where you know effect of it, right? That was inside. Find a way to this can for you guys are ready for it. Konami, shit there means mainly there's some bomb or something like the create on the field. Where somebody might Dolce the deck. I mean, just into something what carry me to go use. And material up to two graveyards into your shuffle card. So that's cool. If you're I'm thinking some of your opponent only has one card, you know, you can still bounce 2 back to your deck. Because remember, it's up to 2, not up to the same amount you bounce back. So you can bounce 2 cards back into your deck, and, you know, all gravy. Because if you fuse the Shaddolls, you know, with the Madolches will go to the grave, especially if you fuse it from the hand. They will go to the grave. Even if you fuse them from the field, from right, yeah, they'll go to the grave regardless, because it has to be your opponent's card effect, right? Yeah, it has to be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. But, you know, though they will end up in the graveyard, so Tiramisu will help you put them back in the deck so that we can draw them later, use them later, or send them back to the grave later with Shaddoll Fusion, or just use Shaddoll Fusion to add, you know, to send them to the graveyard so you can add more ammo to Tiramisu. And that's the other thing, is the ability to constantly, you know, be able to add ammo in the graveyard for Tiramisu. You know, obviously, it's a great thing so that we can use it over and over again, and like YUGIOH and all that other good stuff. And that's the end of the deck profile.